Hello, fans and frenemies, and welcome back to another video that I am sure very few of you want. If you are not aware, I am a huge fan of Transformers, obsessed, some might say, and unfortunately, it seems that most of my subscribers do not share such an affinity. That is to say, whenever I post Transformers videos, I lose subscribers, but I like Transformers too much, so you're all just going to sort of have to deal with that. Today, I am going to be ranking every Transformers thing ever. Again, this is actually a video I did, oh gosh, maybe 2018, 2019. So it's been like 3 or 4 years since I did this, but I have updated my rankings. They are different now. I've changed my feelings on a couple of things, and also some new things have come out. So I am just changing my rankings a little bit. This is my updated 2022 Nate Draikinator rates every Transformers thing ever video, and it's excellent. So there's a lot for me to get into, so I'm going to be rather brief with each entry because there is a lot of Transformers media. And there are a few things that I got into a little bit last time where I had a lot more to say. I'm not going to repeat myself too much. You can go and watch that video if you want to have, know my extended thoughts on Red 15 or something such like that. But new stuff I might have a little bit more to say on. We're going to start at, I think, the bottom and then go to the top. So we start with the things that I haven't actually consumed, so I can't rate them. And that's going to be Robot Masters, Devastation, which is a game that, I mean, it looks fun, but I don't know if there's a whole lot of story. War for Cybertron, which I've actually played a few hours of, but I got kind of bored. I don't think it's bad or anything. It just felt generic and it didn't speak to me. Fall of Cybertron, which is a sequel to War for Cybertron. The Wings Universe comics. Unite Warriors, but that is illustrated by Hayato Sakamoto. And I just sort of inherently do not like him. He's drawn some stuff I can't say on YouTube. And I don't like him. But he did also bring Breakdown back to life in Unite Warriors, and I think he canonized KOBD, and also like Chrome Dome is like a mangaka. I do actually like want to read Unite Warriors because I think that there's a lot going on there that isn't completely worthless, but I don't feel good rating it. It's I have some more complex feelings on it, but I also think that they should just stop hiring Hayato Sakamoto. Transtech, the Marvel Comics, G.I. Joe Transformers crossover comics, the Dreamwave comics, Q Transformers, which I did actually watch some of. I watched it like when it came out, actually, believe it or not. And I've watched a couple of the subbed episodes, but Q Transformers is sort of like a little talk show. It's like a silly little flash cartoon talk show specifically for Japanese fans of Transformers that is specifically about like the Japanese fandom, and it's so steeped in like both Japanese culture and also like this specific environment of the Japanese fandom that I barely understand what they're even talking about. Like I don't get any of the jokes, so I don't really feel like I can rate this because it's like I don't think it's bad. It just I just can't personally like understand it. So for me it is boring, but I don't think that it's bad. The TFP tie-in games, the Bayverse tie-in games, Earth Wars, but Energon Enema. The IDW MLP crossover, but I mean, it does look good. And then Neja. Neja, though, is like, I put that one on here, but no one has seen Neja because it didn't get released. Neja Transformers is a Cyberverse sequel spinoff that is exclusive to mainland China, but they were going to drop it just before the pandemic began. So it kind of got canceled, but like some of the toys still made it out into the market, but they became very rare very quickly. And like I think there might even be like a full season or season 2 or something of Neja, and it's just never going to come out. But like there's exclusive characters and everything. It's really sad. I really wish Neja would come out. I'm the only person I know that owns a Neja Transformer, and I had to go so far out of my way to get it. Anyway, yes. Okay. Next is the bad tier. No. I'm sorry. I'm skipping probably the most important tier, which is the burn in hell tier. And that starts with the worst thing Transformers has ever done, which is kiss players, which is like a crime. Hayato Sakamoto's Transformers Legends, which is irredeemable, extremely transphobic and homophobic, and not funny. Exodus, which just makes my skin crawl. It's a terrible book that's a prequel to Transformers Prime, and I really hate it. I really, really hate it. It gets me so worked up. And then Red 15, which I'm not going to get into because I got into a lot the last time, but I really, really dislike Red 15. Um, God, I really dislike Red 15. Except for the first Soundwave episode where he pops out and he's still in his prime model. That's a pretty good episode, and if you're going to watch any episode of Red, that would be the only one I recommend watching. Everything else is worthless. And then next is the bad tier. Now we move on to that. Moving up from the bottom, War for Cybertron Kingdom, which is just barely above Burn in Hell, but it is really awful, and I was actively like miserable watching it. We sat down, me and my boyfriend and my roommate, we sat down and we watched it when it came out, and I was furious. I was miserable. I was angry. I had a really bad time watching it. I didn't have fun. I was unhappy. Next up is the Transformers branded GoBots. So this isn't the GoBots from the 1980s. This is like a children's show that they made a couple of like 10-minute pilot episodes for that were terrible, and they just put them on some DVDs and released them with some cheap toys. And they're all on YouTube, and they're so awful. It's unimaginable. There's only like 6 of them, so I've seen all of them, but oh my gosh, was it a slog. I hated this. Next up is Machinima's Prime Wars, which is sort of a fever dream of really unprofessional sound mixing. I cannot believe that, like, Machinima's a real company. I mean, I guess they're not anymore, but like they had real people working for them that know the business. I cannot believe they put it out in such like a frankly embarrassing state. It was awful. I never finished it, but like I watched the first season part. It was like 3 parts of 3 episodes, so there were like 9. I watched the first one. It was bad. Right above Machinima's Prime Wars is Bayverse, which just kind of sucks. None of those movies are good. I would say like the first one is fine. Like it's not a good movie. It's definitely not a good Transformers movie, but it's passable. Like you could watch it and say, okay, there was some interesting stuff, and then move on with your life and feel relatively like fine. Like after like Transformers 2, 3, 4, 5, those ones just get increasingly worse to the point like when I was watching 5 in theaters, like I wanted to turn into an orangutan and just like shred the screen. I was so furious. I hated it so much. Above that, I'm putting Vampires, which is not actually a Transformers show, but there's like 200 things on this list. So once you've got this much media, you have to start listing media that is technically not, but basically is. And Vampires is a Transformers knockoff show. It's a Beast Wars specifically knockoff, but the thing about Vampires is that it was made by all of the same people. The same animation studio did it, a lot of the same writers, same voice actors. It is so similar. And again, like the same voices and everything. It's incredible how similar it is. They just sort of filed the serial numbers off and added some live action portions, and it's one of the worst things I've ever seen, but it's also like so bad that it's funny. I've seen it. There's like 12. There's only 12 episodes, and they're all on YouTube, and it's one of the most sort of like mind-boggling, I can't believe this made it to television shows that I've ever seen. Like it's up there. So like it's in bad tier, but it's also, I recommend watching this because it's just, how did this happen? Next up is Cybertron, which is awful. I can't listen to their horrible voices without getting mad. Next up is now don't get mad at me. Wait, and you just got to hang on here. But the 86 movie, the 1986 Transformers movie, but this is the pre-Blu-ray remaster version, the 1935, the 35th anniversary Blu-ray remaster. I'm putting on a different tier because I think that improved the movie like so much and made it so much more watchable. The original version of the 1986 movie I do not like. I can't really understand what anybody's saying because the music is so loud. It's really difficult to watch, but I feel like the remaster really fixed a lot of the issues that I had with it. Next up is Red 2001, which I really didn't like. Beast Machines, which really sort of ruins my day every time I try to watch it. Beast Wars 2 and Beast Wars Neo, which I think are a lot more tolerable than Beast Machines. But they both get super old super fast because basically every episode is the same thing over and over. And I'm also, I didn't actually put this on the list, but I guess I'll put it slightly higher. But there's a Beast Wars 2 movie, I think, where they have Leo Prime and Optimus Primal, like both 2D animated, and they show up. I think it aired in theaters in Japan or something, but I thought that was okay. It seemed like more of an OVA than a movie to me, but I thought it was okay. I'd put that just sort of like in okay tier instead of like actively bad, but it's, I guess it's really not even worth that much of mentioning. Above that is Super God Master Force, which is just kind of barely Transformers at all, and has the wildest, most confusing ending. And then War for Cybertron Earthrise, which is the second War for Cybertron show on Netflix, and it was way worse than the first one. But I will say the ending to it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Like, in the last 5 minutes of Earthrise, the entire show becomes about this random background character, Cog, which is so funny because in the first season, um, I, Cog, Cog kind of got Kenny'd. Like, he got we were sure that Cog died in like one of the episodes where he got shot and then he just like exploded. And like I made a joke about it because I was like, who is that guy? I don't recognize him, but I recognize everyone else in the room. So like that guy's gonna die. He's a red shirt. And then he looked like he died. And so we were then later he showed up again, so I guess he was fine. And so for the rest of season one, I kept joking and pointing out Cog whenever I saw him, like, oh, he's back again. And so I was like actively like watching him in season two when he again had a couple of instances where it appeared he died, and then like season two he wasn't really around until he suddenly showed up and was relevant in one episode, and I was like, whoa, Cog's back, I guess. And then he got sucked out into space. Like when there was a hole in a spaceship, and I was like, oh, they brought him back so they could kill him. I guess they needed a character who could die. But then in the last 5 minutes of the last episode, the entire show like throws the whole plot to the side and begins following Cog, who ended up on the enemy ship, and he's on this unbelievably tragic like single man journey through the ship where he's taking out the bad guys and he's like mortally wounded, and he's gonna take over the ship and save everyone, and then he gets mortally wounded and he's stabbed and he's bleeding, and there's this like 2 minute sequence where he fights off the bad guy and he's sitting in the chair and he has won. He has taken over the ship so it can't shoot at the good guys anymore, but the good guys don't know that. And Cog is like talking, he's like, can anyone hear me? This is Cog. I'm on this ship. I've done it. Please don't shoot. Please don't fire. Like he's dying and begging them not to kill him, but they don't hear him and they blow it up, and it is the most unbelievably tragic like sequence, and it's the best part of the entire series, and we were losing our minds. Like, why did the show why is this our protagonist main character suddenly in the last 5 minutes for no reason? And then I was like, well, we've already killed Cog like 4 times and had him come back, and then that whole sequence was just so dramatic and intense that there's no way that he's dead for real. Like, he has to come back, right? And then in the last season, you'd never see him. He's not there, not even once. And I was looking, and I was so upset. Every time anything changed, we were both like, "Where's Cog? Where's Cog? Where is he?" And then at the very end, when they're like, "Okay, I guess we can live on Cybertron in peace," they have a big wide shot of this like square, I guess, in like the city, and there's this like huge 50-foot tall statue of Cog, and no explanation why. They just pan out and there it is, and I guess they just used like a random character as like a generic statue, I guess, but it was the Cog model, and we're like, why is Cog being what is this? Anyway, War for Cybertron is such a bad series. It really sucks. Right above Earthrise is robotics. Now, robotics is not that, like vampires. It's technically not Transformers, but it's also kind of Transformers because it's a Transformers knockoff. But it's also kind of interesting because robotics was made by Sunbow, who ended up making I think it was Sunbow that made the season 4 of G1 Transformers, which is the American Headmasters, and the thing about robotics is that it's the exact same plot. It's the exact same plot, but like worse. and it came before Headmasters. So I really, really suspect that when it completely flopped, and then they were like, "Oh, we got to write the new Transformers show," they were like, "Oh, we can just reuse that plot. No one will notice," and they just filed the serial numbers off their last thing and then made it a Transformers thing. And also, Hasbro bought Tonka. I don't remember who owned robotics. They owned the company that owns robotics. So they own robotics now, and they actually had, like, I think it was a tiny turbo changer. One of their blind bag sets has a robotics toy in it, so it's like, it's kind of Transformers, and there's like a lot there. Like, again, I think you should watch it if you're like me and you've watched this much Transformers. You should watch robotics, or at least watch like a synopsis of it, because it'll blow your mind how similar it is to Headmasters, and I think that it'll inform like a lot of your like like historical opinion on it, I guess. And then right above robotics, I have the actual American Headmasters, which is barely better, and it's only better because the character designs are slightly less horrible. Above that is Energon, which is so baffling. When I actually sat down and watched Energon, it was like, what an experience. I haven't finished it yet, but it's awful. Like, it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. But also at the same time, it's so funny and confusing. They cast what's his face, the English voice actor who plays Light in Death Note, as like the protagonist human, and he's completely unhinged and feral. He never stops screaming, and he's out of his mind. He's like if Shinji Ikari was like completely insane. It's a lot. It's a whole experience. Like, I don't recommend it, but I also kind of recommend it. It's really bad. Right above that is most of Armada. I'm gonna make a slight difference later. There's somewhere else I'm gonna put some parts of Armada on a higher tier, but most of Armada is really bad, especially the first 7 episodes, which were rushed into production. Like, they constantly get characters' names wrong. They're saying things that don't make sense. At one point, like, I had to pause. I was laughing so hard because they referenced a character, and they weren't even getting the right character right, but they were calling a character, and I'm assuming he meant to say Hotshot, but what he said was Hot Rod, which is another character who isn't even in that show. But they frequently get characters' names wrong. So, like, they call them all, like, they just can't get it right. It's just so rushed. The Japanese version came out 6 months after the American version, and it was a collaborative. Like, they did the animation in Japan, and it still came out in America first. That's because it was that rushed. Japan actually like sat down and like fixed a bunch of stuff before they moved into production. It's all moved around, so it's not like just a dub. It's like it's a different show, honestly. And then right above that is Japanese Headmasters, which I feel is slightly better than American Headmasters. It makes slightly more sense, and also it's funnier. And also, I really think Japanese Headmaster Chrome Dome is really funny because he's like a total Chad. Right above that is G1. I'm sorry, please don't crucify me. I just don't really think it's that great, and I don't really like it. I have no nostalgia. Right above that, at the very top of the bad tier, is the majority of IDW1, which I just don't think is very good. I'm sorry. I don't like Simon Furman. I think he's a jerk. And then in my okay tier, as you can see, my bad tier was very long. The other tiers are much shorter. In my okay tier, I start with Challenge of the GoBots, which, again, is technically not Transformers, but at this point, like, it is Transformers. Hasbro owns it now, and there is, there's a Fun Pub comic where, like, some characters straight up come over from the GoBots universe into this one, and it's, like, relevant. Like, the GoBots universe is canon in the Transformers universe in that continuity. And then there's several characters, like Bugbite, who are originally, like, GoBots characters, but they got moved over, and now they are Transformers characters. Because, again, they bought GoBots, so they own it now. Crasher's a Transformers character. So, yeah, that one's, like, really easy to justify putting it on this list, but it's one of those. I think it's fine, but you can definitely tell if you watch it, like, why Transformers won, even though technically Challenge of the GoBots made it to market first, and GoBots should have been the one that felt like the real one, and Transformers felt like the knockoff since they were first technically, but like they're just so much worse. Transformers are just better in every way. Right above that is Zone, which is an OVA. It was okay. It was really weird. Also, I think that they were supposed to be gay. Legitimately, I think that the human characters were supposed to be gay, and I have no idea what that means or why that was done. But boy, oh boy, was it interesting to watch. And then last in my OK tier at the very top is War for Cybertron Siege, which is the first War for Cybertron one, which I thought was just okay. And then the good tier at the very bottom, I have Beast Wars Uprising, which I had in the OK tier, and I really waffled on whether it was good or okay, but I'm putting it in good because I am obsessed with the. Eject is a character, and he has a son. Eject is one of the main antagonists, and he has a literal son that he literally raised as a son, and I can't handle that. Anyway, the entire, like, I really don't care about most of Beast Wars Uprising, even if it is a fascinating creature. But Eject and Leo Prime are just so much that, or Leo Convoy, that I am obsessed with it. So I put it in good tier. Above that is Fun Pub Shattered Glass, which I actually really enjoy the little bits of that I've read. It's kind of scattered, but I mean, like, Solarbot is so funny. I can't get over it. Above that is Transformers Go, which is a fun kind of TFP spinoff. Above that this is technically, again, not Transformers, but it basically is. The Mastermind Creations Nemo and Notif toys, which are Chrome Dome and Rewind, had a pack-in comic with it, and I'm rating that here in the middle of the good tier because I liked it. I thought the art was really nice, and I thought it was a fun little comic, and I liked it, and I'm putting it here. And above that, I'm putting IDW Shattered Glass, which I really liked, and then right above that, I'm putting IDW 2, which I thought was really great. It just really shot itself in the foot. Like, starting off by killing Brainstorm was just really not a good idea, and they shouldn't have let it. Someone should have warned him that was going to immediately, like, make fans really angry because people are already really suspicious of IDW2. They really, like, didn't have a lot of goodwill towards it because IDW1 got kind of canceled suddenly. And a lot of people suspected that it might have something to do with all of the gay stuff in IDW1. And so when the first thing that happens in IDW2 is, Brainstorm, who is, like, the poster child for useless gays, is, like, brutally murdered and not relevant, it really, like, a lot of people really felt like a little bit betrayed, and they really didn't like it. So, I understand why he made the call, but it was a bad call specifically because of that. But, like, the actual IDW2 is good. It just was written more as, like, something to sit down and read all of them in a row the way you would a novel, whereas it's a comic and they come out once a month, and that was its big issue, is it just wasn't written like that. It was written archivally, not serially, and that was a big problem. But it is really good. It's got a good story. Above that, in the great tier, I have the Transformers RID 15 IDW comic, which I really loved, by Georgia Ball. I thought it was great. It gave me everything that I wanted from Red 15 and that Red 15 didn't deliver. Above that is the IDW Windblade mini, which is gorgeous. Above that is Victory, which is great, hilarious. I really love Jan. This is another one where Starsaber is a character and he has a son, but he has a human son that he adopts, and it's so funny. Above that is the Starscream and Optimus parts of Armada. This is where I moved that part. The Starscream parts of Armada, like, shoot up in quality, where the rest of it is, like, nothing. Whenever Starscream's on screen and having, like, being relevant to the story is incredible, and it's so engaging, and I'm obsessed. Above that is the Blu-ray remaster of the 86 movie, which is great. And then it's Transformers Animated, which I just adore. And then at the very top of great is Transformers Prime, which is great and fantastic, and I love watching, but it's just got too many inconsistencies and a little bit too much fridge logic and a little bit too much behind-the-scenes homophobia for me to put it in God tier. So it's just at the very top of great. And then in God tier, at the very bottom, I've got Recordicons, which is a comic by David Willis, who introduced the first transgender Transformer Hellback, and I think Recordicons is hilarious, and I love it. Above that is Beast Wars, which is great. And then BotBots, which is a new show that's come out, like, just this past year on Netflix, and it is so funny and so wild and unhinged. It's so funny. They have an entire episode that's like a Hamilton spoof. Like, it's so much. They have an episode that's a Chopping Mall reference. I couldn't handle it. I was like, what are they doing? Rescue Bots, or blah, blah, blah. BotBots is a little bit unhinged and hilarious, and I love it. They're all terrible. Above that is Earthspark, which is super duper new. That's come out, like, this month, and I really love it. I've seen them the first 10 episodes, which I think is the first, like, season, but it was so interesting, and I'm so invested, and everyone had such great performances. especially Alan Tudyk as Optimus Prime. It's been a really long time since someone who isn't Peter Cullen has done what I feel is like an acceptable Optimus Prime, because everybody who isn't Peter Cullen in the last like 10 years has just tried to mimic Peter Cullen and done a bad job. So Alan Tudyk doing his thing is like really good, and I really enjoy it. And Earth Spark just has had a lot of really fascinating stuff going on with it, and I really enjoy all the characters. And Twitch is my daughter, and I love her. Um, Above that is Rescue Bots Academy, which is great fun, and I just love. I love Girl World. She's great. Above that is the Bumblebee movie, which I don't count in Bayverse because Michael Bay didn't work on it, but it's the live-action Bumblebee movie by Travis Knight, and it was just fantastic. I love it. Oh, it. I was leaving the theater just like, spinning in little circles and dancing. I was having a great time. Above that is Cyberverse, which I absolutely love and is my big thing that I recommend anybody who wants to get into Transformers. You should start with Cyberverse. Like, a lot of it is free on YouTube, and it really just like gets what Transformers is about. And some people think season 1 is really boring because a lot of like plot stuff doesn't happen. It's just a lot of running around, but I still think it's fun. I don't really get why other people don't like it so much, but I guess some people think it's boring, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Above that is More Than Meets the above that is kind of a big leap. It's More Than Meets the Eye, Lost Light, which is like I'm completely obsessed with. It's ruined my life. It's the IDW 1 comics by James Roberts. And again, it's ruined my life. I love More Than Meets the Eye so much. I literally think about it every day. I talk about it every day. It's consumed my brain. And then finally, the highest rated thing of all Transformers media is Rescue Bots, which is the best thing Transformers has ever created. It's the best thing that's come out of this franchise. I'm not joking. I'm 100% serious. It's the only thing to break the 3-season curse. There's a curse on Transformers that nothing can get past 3 seasons, and Rescue Bots has 4 seasons. It has the most episodes of any serialized Transformers show ever made. It's got over 100. It's the best. They didn't even cancel Rescue Bots because it wasn't popular. They canceled it because they ran out of stuff to write about, and then they made a sequel with Rescue Bots Academy, which also got like 3 seasons. Rescue Bots is really, really good. I love it, and I'm slapping the table. That's just what it is. Rescue Bots rules. And then finally, I have one sort of honorary mention, which is Eugenesis, which I put in the tier of what? I just call it what tier because I don't even know how to rank this. I used to have it at the top of God tier, but now I'm just like, I don't even know. The Eugenesis, I can't even describe it as good or bad. It just like is. It's an experience that no one should have, but also you can't not have. If you're this deep in Transformers, at some point you just have to experience Eugenesis, and I don't know how to describe it other than an experience. I don't even know if it's a good one or a bad one, but it has poisoned my brain forever. So yeah, that is my Transformers rankings. I've tried to keep it as quick as possible because I know this video is going to be long. Wow, we're at 28 minutes. That's fantastic. Anyway, so that is my current up-to-date 2022 rankings for every Transformers thing ever. If I missed something, God, I probably missed something. Just let me know in the comments, and I will let you know that I'm ashamed of myself for having forgotten it. Thanks. Nader's out.